Today we're going to look at this Grozer biocomposite Hunnish bow. This is made in Hungary by Grozer. He is a well-known bowyer. I can't really pronounce his name properly. It's in Hungarian. And he makes a wide variety of bows. And one of his most famous designs is the biocomposite material, which uses a mixture of horn and sinew with natural materials and some synthetic materials in there to get something that looks a lot like a traditional bow, but with more reliability and modern methods with the modern materials, which I believe is mostly the glue. So that you're not really using hide glue and groovings to make the horn. It's more of a modern processing technique, but the materials are more similar from my understanding. The horn is actually a type of horn powder, not natural horn, just glued on with grooving. They don't do that with these ones. I think it's just a lamination layer using some kind of horn powder mixed in with modern materials to look like horn. And then the sinew is a compressed type of sinew to give that backing layer. And then you still have your bone plates and your bone reinforcements at the siyahs. So general, like far away or even close by, it's quite a historical looking bow, but the biggest telling is by looking at the layers here, and you can tell it's a more of a modern laminated bow. This bow is a lot cheaper than the historical bows made with historical methods, using proper grooving, the proper hide glue, this, with the proper splicing at the siyahs. There is difference, of course, in that, but this is in the more $500 range, and then the actual historical bows are the $2,000 range. So there's, of course, a huge difference. These bows are asymmetric, according to the Byzantines. So ideally, you want slight asymmetry, but with an exaggerated symmetry, it's even more obvious to have a higher knocking point. It could also be because maybe one of the horn is naturally bigger than the other horn. So then naturally you make it slightly longer. One is their top limb, one's your lower limb. Generally speaking, the top limb is the longer limb. So it could just be the natural materials that they had, are the horn of the time isn't going to grow perfect every single time. There might be some bad spots where you want to remove, and then you get a lower limb with a higher limb. But it's interesting to say that the Byzantines say these are characteristics of the Hun. I don't know why they would pick specifically that symmetry, like this kind of exaggerating symmetry. Perhaps it's just a very slight asymmetry. We don't know for sure. So now let's talk about everyone's favorite part. How did the Huns use these in warfare? And of course, the Huns didn't just use bows. They had melee weapons. Spears are important, lances, sabers. Sometimes shields, especially for sieges, are very important for the Huns. Of course, they had mercenaries as well. The Ostrogoths, for example, fought with them. So there's all kind of different weapons used by the Huns and their allies. In my opinion, one of the reasons why the Huns were so successful is because the Romans, the people that talk about them, that write about them, were terrified of these people. Perhaps there's a significant religious component here of thinking these are devils that were sent by God to punish the Romans for their sins. So something religious like this would, of course, really affect their morale. And then getting dissected by the horse archer tactics of the time, morale plays a very significant part in battlefield at the time. Even if the archers at the time, they weren't able to penetrate most of the shields and the armor, if their morale is being penetrated, that can affect the battlefields a lot more. So keep that in mind. So when it comes to the tactics, you want a bow that's able to be tactically flexible. I wouldn't get a very heavy bow. I get something about the 80-pound range, like the medium weight. You can shoot fast, you can shoot relatively accurate, and you can switch to other weapons and be able to retreat more effectively than with very heavy bows. But with a decent amount of range, with a wide variety of arrows. I think that would be the best option of the time. And then the techniques, I think being as flexible as possible is the best option. So learning finger draws and thumb draws, so you have more flexibility, and shooting ambidextrously. This is very important for horse archers to be able to shoot 360 degrees. So I think these are very important things for the Hunnic horse archers of the time. Wow, you hear that string, everything, it just feels fast. That is a good bow. It's only like 45 pounds at 28 inches, but it still packs a punch. And it's relatively accurate because the plates on these it's very narrow here. The bone plate gives you still a decent amount of reinforcement, but the handle is very narrow. Compared to my 100-pound bows, those ones have such a thick handle, it's much harder to aim. This, I can hit relatively precise. Because this bow is made in Hungary, and you know, Kasai is quite famous in Hungary, we gotta do some of the Kasai style techniques. Whether or not the Huns did it back in the day, we don't know, but it works. Of course, without broadheads, this is quite a useful technique. But if you have broadheads that can cut the string, but you don't have to go inside the string, you can go around it, which takes longer, but it's more safe. So again, all the way around, slightly longer, but no broadheads cutting the string. And of course, you can use thumb draws. That's awesome. I love this bow. Okay, let's do a little bit longer draw length. Oh, that broke the arrow. Now let's do some longer draw lengths. I prefer to shoot shorter draw lengths on these bows because they're a lot more expensive on a fiberglass bow. On a fiberglass one, I don't really care if I pull 32 and it breaks. But something like this, I don't know if it's gonna break. Wow, the arrow shoots a lot faster. And it actually went above the target because of how much more energy it has. But the arrow did not break. That's good. Wow. Okay, let's try a Mediterranean draw. Ooh, I do feel the stack in the last 2 inches. But wow, that arrow packs a punch. It's a lot faster. At these longer draw lengths, it's a lot faster, a lot more powerful, but I don't want to put mileage on this bow with such longer draw lengths. I prefer to shoot in the 28-inch draw lengths for these bows, and they last longer if I do that because you put less strain on the bow. Oh wow, that's a longer draw length. Now there is people that have been asking, why don't you show more target shooting? The thing is, one, it's kind of boring, and two, I'm not a very accurate archer. There's much more accurate archers you can watch. I'm more into the historical styles, and when you get into all these different anchor points and different styles, it's hard to shoot one consistently. It's like jack of all trades and master of none kind of thing. But also, I was just never an accurate archer. I'm not patient enough to aim accurately. It's not something that I like to really show. Another thing you'll notice is these bows are not center shot, right? There's no sight. And these traditional bows are just much less accurate than modern bows. Even a modern recurve is a lot more accurate. So the accuracy of these aren't that good, but they don't need to be. In military warfare, you're generally speaking shooting a blob, a mass of soldiers. So individual marksmanship is not as important as volume of fire and draw weight. I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none archer. So, I'm not relatively accurate. So in summary, I really like this Grozer Hunnish bow. It's got the beautiful horn and sinew look. You got the bone plates, and unless you look close, you're not going to be able to tell it's a composite bow. For most of the videos at that distance, it's quite hard to tell if this is a horn sinew bow that's properly made or not. You need to look close to actually see, which is great for making videos. If you're the hardcore purist, I wouldn't get this, of course, but make sure you have enough money in your wallets. So I like that, you know, the performance is quite decent. If you look at, in comparison to the Mongolian bows made in Mongolia, those are much more sluggish. They even put like fish twine on their horn sinew bows. I wouldn't get that because it's not that performance-wise. That's a terrible shooter. But these, they shoot well, they're pretty fast. And anyways, thanks a lot. This is my review of the Hunnish Grozer biocomposite bow. Stay tuned.